Peace to the family. This is Chancellor Solicitor, Free Inhabitant, back at you with a brand new funk once again. This is part two. Part two. I got the English Grand National Grand Sheik, Clifford Jefferson L. Bay from the House of Geoffery. Family, this is December 30th. December 30th, 2018. We're about to move on to another millennium, another year, which will be 2019. But we're going to bring this information to you, family, before we roll out a 2018. The English National Grand Sheik, Clifford Jefferson L. Bay, going to bring more facts to you, more truth to the family, so that he can drop down. Again, this is in lieu of part two. Your mortgage, i.e. rents, is already paid in full. This is a revisit going back to part 1 and 2 in lieu of status and the law. How you can set off these rents as well as mortgages and things of that nature. This is a revisit in lieu of the old part 1, part 2, in lieu of status and law, how to set off these debts. This is part 2. Part 2, family. Y'all can go take a check out part 1. Your mortgage rent is already paid in full. So again, without further ado, I'm going to bring the floor, get the floor to you, to the English National Grand Sheik, Clifford Jefferson L. Bay from the House of Geoffery. Take it away, family.
Council Chancellor, I appreciate your diligence in your presentation and presentment pursuant to the King of Geoffery from the House of Geoffery. This is another aspect of the degree that we given to you in the last video pertaining to the status and standing as Jews, descendant of the Anglo-Corsican Berbers, from the kings of England that lasted from time immemorial, but the records goes back from 927 to 1706 and up to this day. Peace, Protect, Islam, and all the degrees, all the terms that we can say peace in. I'm going to leave from where I left off, and I'm going to continue in lieu of the status and standing of those misnowned as Jews, who were actually Berbers. We're going to prove this without a shout of doubt, because in reality, we must understand that we are the true heirs to what we misnown as North America, America, United States. We're in England, brothers and sisters. England. The majority said in question number 80 that we are descendants of kings and queens. Question number 89 clearly states that don't throw away your slave names, i.e. your English names, for they are your birthright, and the Europeans will have to pay back in compound interest for what they did in the time of slavery to our ancestors. So without further ado, let us travel back in time. We're going to deal with the British Jews who were under the jurisdiction and recorded in the time of William the Conqueror, when England was taken over by the feudal system, when we became what we call legal fictions. Okay, we can go down. You know, all those who have the ability to be able to watch this lecture, as well as be able to pull up the insight in which I'm revealing to you by Google, please do so. Those who don't, please get your pencils and pens, your paper, so that you can record some of this history. I would like to make a disclosure that we are not affiliated with any religious organization, any corporate organization. I don't want to name any names, but any of them. This is not about that. This is about the status and standing as citizens of so-called misnowned America. But we are in England. We are Englishmen. And all Englishmen have substantial rights protected by the law. Because we know it, whether or not the Constitution and the Bill of Rights is rooted in what we call the Magna Carta, signed by 1215 by John I, who was the son of Henry II, was the son of Godfrey, i.e. Jefferson, which is my ancestors' house. which we're going to prove today. Peace. It says here, the British Jews. British Jews often referred to collectively as the British jury, or Anglo jury. This goes into what they call usurer or usury. We're going to get into that as we go through this particular section of the so-called relationship in regards to the British Jews. It says, British jury or Anglo jury are British citizens who are ethnically or in religiously Jewish. The numbers of identifying Jews in England and Wales has risen slightly over the past decade. The growth is largely due to the rapid growth of ultra-Orthodox communities. Give me 1 second. I kept a record so I can keep a timeline of what I'm talking about. We're going to go down to history, paragraph 1 and 4. It says history. As you see in the main article, it says history of the Jews in England, history of the Jews in Scotland, history of the Jews in Wales, history of the Jews in North Ireland. When you get your own time, please research that so you can get an understanding of the uniformity and the identity of those who call themselves Jews but are not. It says here, the first recorded Jewish community in Britain was brought to England in 1070 by King William the Conqueror, who believed that what he assumed to be its commercial skills would make his newly won country more prosperous. 200 years later, the Jews were no longer welcome. On the 16th of March in 1190, in the run-up to the Third Crusade, the Jewish population of Europe was massacred at the site where Clifford Towers now stands. Mind you, that is my first name, Clifford Jefferson. And King Edward I of England passed the Statute of Jewry in 1275, restricting the community activities, most notably outlawing the practice of usury, i.e. charging interest. When 15 years later, Edward found that many of these provisions were ignored, he expelled the Jews from England. They immigrated to countries such as Poland, which protected them by law. A small English community persisted in hiding despite the explosion. Jews were not banned from Scotland, which until 1707 was an independent kingdom. Let's go to the fourth paragraph. It says here, it says the oldest community in Britain is the Spanish and Portuguese Jewish community. Hold on, I think I'm at the wrong spot. Give me 1 second. Yes, right here. In 1656, Oliver Cromwell made it clear that the ban of Jewish settlement in England and Wales would no longer be enforced. Although when Rabbi Manasseh ben Israel brought a petition to allow Jews to return, the majority of the protectorate government turned it down. Gradually, Jews eased back to England, first visiting for trade, then staying longer periods, and finally bringing their families in the mid-19th century Ireland. Ireland, then ruled by the British. Daniel O'Connell, known as the Liberator for his work on Catholic emancipation, worked successfully for the repeal of the de-Judaismo law, which prescribed a special yellow badge for Jews. Benjamin Disraeli of 1804 to 1881, of Jewish birth, although he joined the Church of England, served in government for 3 decades, twice as prime minister. So there was many people identified as Jews, but were not actually Jews. It says here, at the last paragraph, dealing with history, it says, however, it would be a mistake to think of Britain Jews as being exclusively of European origin. I'm going to repeat that again. However, it would be a mistake to think of Britain Jews as being exclusively of European origin. Following the decolonization, the late 20th century saw Yemeni Jews, Iraq Jews, and Baghdadi Jews from Asia settled in the United Kingdom. A multicultural community. In 2006, British Jews celebrated the 350th anniversary of the resettlement of England. So as we can see, dealing with the British Jewry, it clearly states that William the Conqueror, and the time of William the Conqueror, it was the first recorded time of the so-called Jewish community in Britain. It also mentions that a statute of Jewry, or usury, or usufruct were established by Edward I of England in 1275, because the Jews were expelled from England in 1290 through the expulsion of the Jews. So why is this important? Because we need to understand why we were expelled from that particular territory or jurisdiction. So now I'm going to revisit the expulsion of the Jews and the so-called protection of the Jews, so that we can understand that we, as descendants of the so-called Jews, i.e. Berbers, that here in North America, we have the same right of protection as the so-called Jews who were actually Berbers in that time of era. So let's look at the so-called expulsion of the Jews. Edict of the expulsion of the Jews. The edict of expulsion of the Jews. Can you see that well?
Yeah, let's straighten it up. You're gonna have to push over. It's small, you can't really see. You're gonna have to.
So let's get this right so you guys can see it.
Just bring it up and just push it over, slide over and read like that.
That's fine right there?
Yeah, you could come down a little bit. All right, that's good. And just read from there, just slide over.
All right, more brothers and sisters, brothers, I'm going to just read and I'm going to slide over. Those who are on their own computer, you probably won't have to do that. But I need you guys to be able to read the actual context of what I'm reading, so that way you get an understanding of what happened at that particular time to us as Berbers identified as Jews being expelled from our homeland when we were in England, ruling as tribes. This is the Edict of Expulsion, was a royal decree issued by the King Edward I of England on the 18th of July in 1290, expelling all Jews from the Kingdom of England. The expulsion edict remained in force for the rest of the Middle Ages. The edict was not an isolated incident, but the culmination of over 200 years of increased persecution. The edict was overturned during the Protectorate more than 350 years later, when Oliver Cromwell permitted Jews to return to England in 1657. King Edward I advised sheriffs of all counties, you hear that? It said county, it didn't say state, it didn't say federal government. It says of all counties, he wanted all Jews expelled by no later than All Saints' Day, i.e. the 1st of November of the year the decree was issued. Let's go to status. This is the status of the Jews. Give me 1 second, brothers and sisters. Let me go back, because I want this to correlate with what I just reading about the Jews. I thought I actually saved it. Apparently not. It's right here. Let's do the Jews in it. Status. You see that, brothers and sisters? I hope you do. Understood? Yes. Chancellor. 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 Brother Chancellor. Sadiq, that is good.
Move over a little bit. The other way.
This way.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty good. You can come down just slightly a little. Okay, that's good right there.
Okay.
Okay.
It says status of the Jews. Prior to their expulsion in 1290, the status of the Jews in England was completely dependent on the will of the crown. English Jews were legally under the jurisdiction of the king, who offered them protection in return for their economic functions. As royal serfs, they were allowed freedom of the king's highway, exemptions from tolls, the ability to hold land directly from the king. You hear that, Morris?
Do you hear that, family?
Directly from the king.
Read it again, Grand Sheik.
It says, they were legally under the jurisdiction of the king, who offered them protection in return for their economic functions. As royal serfs, they were allowed freedom of the king's highways, exemption from tolls. By the way, Route 27, which we know as French Street, is called King's Highway.
Okay.
For all those who didn't know that, it's called King's Highway. He said, exemption from tolls, the ability to hold land directly from the king. So that means that as holding land directly from the king, you are the landlord, because he's sending land to those for their economic benefit. So this is the reason why we have the right as beneficiaries of the king.
That's beautiful, family. Did you hear what the Grand Sheik just said?
As royal serfs, I'll read one more time, they were allowed freedom of the king's highways, exemption from tolls, the ability to hold land directly from the king, and physical protection in the vast network of royal castles built to assert Norman authority. Because the Normans were under the authority of the so-called kings of England. Mm-hmm. And they swore to uphold the laws of the king of England, such as what we call the Wittemont or Witten. But when the kings of England lost their heirs by way of not having the descendant, they switched to what they call the Roman Correct. Let's see. All right, it says, a clause to that, can you see that?
Yes.
A clause to that effect was inserted under Henry I in some manuscript of the so-called Legis Edwardi Confessoris, laws of Edward the Confessor. Henry granted a charter to the Rabbi Joseph, the chief rabbi of London, and his followers. Under this charter, Jews were permitted to move about the country without paying tolls, to buy and sell, to sell their pledges after holding them a year and a day, to be tried by their peers, and to be sworn on the Torah rather than on the Christian Bible. That should make some of y'all say, Special weight was attributed to the to a Jew's oath, which was valid against that of 12 Christians. The sixth clause of the charter was especially important. It granted Jews the right to move whenever they wanted, as if they were the king's own property. Sicut res propere, as the nostre, as the king's property. English Jews could be mortgaged whenever the minor needed to raise revenue, and could be taxed without the permission of Parliament, eventually becoming the main tax-paying population. English Jews experienced a golden age of sorts under Henry II in the late 12th century due to the huge economic expansion and increase in demand for credit. Who was Henry II? Henry II was the son of Geoffery, i.e. Jefferson, from the House of Plantagen, which is that flag you see above. That's my family's house. That's my family's crest. The House of Plantagen, or Channel Island, or Belwick of Jersey, or Guernsey, all one and the same, under the jurisdiction of the Kingdom of England. Okay. So now, let's go and look up usury. Because as we said, the Jews were under the jurisdiction of Edward the Confessor, under what they call Laws Edward Confessoris, which means the laws of Edward the Confessor. It says usury. Can you see that?
Yes, yes.
Is defined today the practice of making unethical or immoral monetary loans that unfairly enrich the lender. Originally, usury meant interest of any kind. A loan may be considered usurious because of excessive or abusive interest rates or other factors. Historically, in some Christian societies and in many Islamic societies, even today, charging any interest at all would be considered usury. Someone who practices usury can be called a usurer, but a more common term in contemporary English is called a loan shark.
Oh, you hear that, family? A loan shark.
Loan shark.
That show you right there. These banks are loan sharking. Ah, here it is, right here in history.
So
these banks are loan sharking.
So when you get in your own time, for the sake of time, read that up. Usury, origin, where it comes from. What I'm showing you is that when we came over from England, expelled under expulsion in 1290 by King Edward I, under what they call the expulsion of the Jews, we were still under the jurisdiction and property of the king. But somehow, some so-called other people had other intentions. They took on the identity of who we are. And how was that identity stolen? Through my family house, Geoffery, i.e. Jefferson. Why? Because Plantagen, i.e. Channel Island, were under the jurisdiction of Geoffery V. This is where Thomas Jefferson gets his last name from. Thomas Jefferson, Thomas Geoffery. But his descent does not come from Jefferson or Geoffery, because his mother's last name or surname is Skelton, and his father's last name is Randolph. So now, my grandmother name is Ruth Jefferson. My great-grandmother name is Ruth Jefferson. So now, I'm going to bring you to the understanding how important descent is, because people think what I'm saying is not true. And only for you to be an English national, you must have descent by way of heir and by way of origin on that particular land. That's called jus soli and jus sanguineus. You need those two in order to have a allodial title. And I have proven that I have a allodial title because prior to it becoming what they call New Jersey, it was called Jersey or Belwick, under the jurisdiction of the Kingdom of England, was given by way of a charter by Charles II in 1640 to George Carteret. And George Carteret established what they call common recovery under what they call commission agreement, which transfer land from the natural people to what they call corporations under what they call the statutes of mortmain. This is what the movie Coming to America was about. One of the guys who Eddie Murphy gave the money to was named Mortimain, and one name was called Randolph. So let's get into that understanding. Ratification Day, brothers and sisters. Ratification Day. Here we go. See that, brother?
Yes, sir.
Ratification Day in the United States is the anniversary of the ratification of the Treaty of Paris on January the 14th, 1784. My birthday is January the 14th. January the 14th is also the Bourbon New Year. But that you New Year was changed by Pope Gregory the 13th when in 1582 when the Gregorian calendar was initiated. So now I'm going to show you it was initiated in the 5th century by Pope Gregory I under what they call the Gregorian reform in Kent, which is going to take us back to Muhammad. And we're going to prove that in my last lecture, my couple of lectures I did prior to that, about Muhammad not being Islamic. He was from Anglo-Saxon tribe who was living in Kent at that time under the Gregorian reform. We're going to prove it. Let's go on a little further. Proclamation of Congress. You see that?
Yes, yes, sir.
Proclamation of Congress. The journals of the Continental Congress reports that the Confederation Congress issued a proclamation on April 11, 1783, declaring the cessation of arms against Great Britain. The preliminary articles of peace were approved by Congress on April 15, 1783, and the Treaty of Paris were ratified on January the 14th, 1784, my birthday. An excerpt from the proclamation of ratification was between George I when he transferred from the Kingdom of England in 1714. George I was from the House of Hanover, which is the House of Rome. It says here in that excerpt, by the United States and Congress assembled a proclamation, whereas definitive articles of peace and friendship between the United States of America and His Britannic Majesty were concluded and signed at Paris on the 3rd day of September 1783. We have thought proper by these presents to notify the premises to all the good citizens of these United States. Remember, they talked about Edward the Confessor issued a charter. The only way you can be associated with the land is by way of a charter or a land pact, not by way of treaty. Treaties only were established to cause or to stop war that were between two nations or sovereign nations.
Correct, correct.
That's the only way treaties are used. They are not to establish jurisdiction in lieu of jus soli or jus sanguinis.
Correct. It has no connection to the land.
Okay. It says, we have thought proper by these presents to notify the purposes to all the good citizens of these United States, giving under the seal of the United States, witness His Excellency Thomas Mifflin, our President at Indianapolis, this the 14th day of January in the year of our Lord, 1784. Once again, January the 14th is my birthday. January the 14th is also the year of the Berbers. The new year under the Gregorian calendar did not initiate till January the 1st under the jurisdiction of Great Pope Gregory the 13th in 1582. Look it up, people. Please, look it up. Let's go down to Congressional Debate. Paragraph 1. It says, you see that, Chancellor? Congressional Debate. Due to the severe winter in 1783 and 1784, only delegates from 7 of the 13 states were present in Congress. According to the Articles of Confederation, 9 states were required to enter into a treaty. One faction believed that the 7 states could ratify the treaty, arguing that they were merely ratifying and not entering into a treaty. Furthermore, it was unlikely that the required delegates could reach Indianapolis before the ratification deadline. Thomas Jefferson faction believed that a full 9 states were required to ratify the treaty. Any less would be trickery, which Britain would eventually find out, giving it an excuse to nullify the treaty. Jefferson stated that it would be a dishonorable prostitution of the Great Seal of the United States. So now guess what? Guess what day the treaty is ratified? January the 14th, 2019. This year coming. My birthday. So now we just realized and qualified, according to Thomas Jefferson on the mission, that there were not the right amount of senators in the state to ratify the Treaty of Britain. They are in dishonor because the Treaty of Paris came through a whole line of treaties. The Treaty of 1215 under the Magna Carta was the treaty established by John I, the son of Henry II, the son of Godfrey V, because it was under the Queen Anne who issued the charter to George Carteret, and it was Charles II who issued a charter to George Carteret in 1640. But George Carteret had other intentions. This is why Queen Anne had to reunite West Pennsylvania, West Jersey, and East Jersey by restoring the Constitution in 1702. It's clearly stated that it should be a fusion of government overlapping. These instructions were given to Viscount Cornbury, which established what they call the New Jersey State legislation. So if it was not for the New Jersey State legislation within the state of New Jersey, which got the authority by the amended Constitution of 1947, which came by the Constitution of 1776, which was still under jurisdiction of the Kingdom of England. So under the Kingdom of England dealt with the English nationals pertaining to the authority given by Queen Anne by way of her uncle, Charles II, by way of his father, King George, who threw the Great Rim into the Thames River because he didn't want it to get captured by his enemies, i.e. the so-called French. Let's move on. So we understand that we read about Ratification Day under Thomas Mifflin. So who was this Thomas Mifflin? Just give me a second to take a quick thought quencher. Thomas Mifflin. Can you see that, Chancellor?
That's good.
Thomas Mifflin. Let's go down to his born day. I don't even want to get into who he was. Let's get into his born day. You can do that on your own, brothers and sisters. Thomas Mifflin was born January the 10th, 1744, in Philadelphia province of Pennsylvania, in British America. Do you hear that? British America. So that shows you that Britain, i.e. England, before it was transferred to Britain, was under the jurisdiction of England, now called British America.
True story, true
Showing
story.
that there is uniformity between the two nations. One was a sovereign nation, and one was the sovereign nation who extended territory to the new so-called founding nation, i.e. Continental Congress, by the so-called founding fathers. Died January 20, 1800, at the age 56 in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, United States. You see that? You see how he switched from Britain, America, to the United States? Because they declared their independence in 1776. By way of the treaty, and then it went on by way of the Treaty of 1784 on January the 14th, with what they call Independence Day, which was unlawfully done. Why? Because it was not ratified by the proper amount of senators, which we now have found out, which is unlawful. That means that their treaty was invalid. It's invalid, brothers and sisters. So as Englishmen, we have the right to revoke their charter. Revoke their charter. Let's go to paragraph 1. It says, you see that, Chancellor? Prior to America's independence, Thomas Mifflin was a member of the Pennsylvania Province Assembly, 1772 to 1776. He served 2 terms in the Continental Congress, 1774 through 1775, 1782 to 1784, including 7 months, November 1783 to June 1784, as the body presiding officer. Mifflin's most important duty as president was to accept on behalf of Congress the resignation of General George Washington on December 23rd, 1783. Wasn't he the president? He was the president of the United States, first president. After the war, the importance of Congress declined so precipitously that Mifflin found it difficult to convince the states to send enough delegates to Congress to ratify the Treaty of Paris. So he agreed with Thomas Jefferson that there was not a right amount of senators to ratify the treaty. So it was unlawfully ratified. Let's go to paragraph 2. Let's go to debate. Early life. First paragraph. Early life. See the family coats of arms? The unofficial coat of arms used by a family of John Mifflin. Did you hear that? I don't think I heard that. It said unofficial coats of arms used by a family of John Mifflin. So that means that coat of arms is unofficial. It's not validated. Why? Because they are not the true ancestors of that particular land.
They're under the feudal coat of arms.
Exactly.
As a matter of fact, let's just show them that book real quick.
Let's just show them that book.
This is how you track your surname. Your surname ties you into just solely or just sanguineous. As Englishmen would have the right on their allodial title by way of your descent by coming down from the house of Geoffery. The house of Geoffery or Plantagenet or Anjou was constantly being protected by the house of Tudors, by Henry VIII, by his daughter Elizabeth I, all the way down to the house of Stuart, from King James to his granddaughter, great-granddaughter, Queen Anne. Queen Anne. Look at that, brothers and sisters. Heroity by Joseph Foster. It says, the feudal coats of arms and pedigree. The dictionary of, this is a dictionary. So get you one of these books, look up the coats of arms from the origin of the kings of England to where it got overthrown by the feudal system under William the Conqueror. They stole your birthright, brothers and sisters. They stole your birthright. Yes, they did. Okay, let me go on with the continued lecture. Okay, now as we just established that unofficial coats of arms, which is under the feudal system, which we just showed you the book, it says the unofficial coats of arms used by family of John Mifflin. We understand that Thomas Mifflin was descendant of the so-called Mifflin surname, which was unofficial and is invalid because they have no rights to the land, nor the right to that surname by way of just solely by way of birthright. It says Thomas Mifflin was born January 10, 1744, in Philadelphia, in the province of Pennsylvania. Now we just read that it was called British America. So now, just because you're born here does not make you a citizen. Noble Ali told you that. Doesn't make you a citizen. So you're only recognized by the nation in the land for where you come from. So if you're born on this land, the only rights that can protect you are the rights that protect people on this land, which is the Constitution. But the Constitution don't give rights, it only protects rights by the authority that gave it the right to protect its citizens as trustees. And as trustees, the authority given to them through the Bill of Rights comes from the Magna Carta signed by John I, who was the son of Geoffery, i.e. Jefferson, from the house of Geoffery, which is the house of Plantagenet or Anjou, which we said in my last lecture goes all the way back to the time of Julius Caesar, back in 57 so-called BC, which we know didn't exist because the calendar for them did not come into Pope Gregory the 13th in 1582. So it says, Thomas Mifflin was born January 10th, 1744 in Philadelphia. in the province of Pennsylvania. He was born the son of Mifflin and Elizabeth Bagnall. His great-grandfather, John Mifflin Jr., which we know is unofficial, in 1661 to 1714, was born in Warminster, Wiltshire, England, and settled in the province of Pennsylvania. So now, if you know Wiltshire is a shire, i.e. county, i.e. wapentake, that stemmed from England. County is a shire. The first time that term was used by Edmund I, the son of King Edward the Peaceful, i.e. King Edward Jefferson, who looks just like me. King Edward the Peaceful, daughter name was Judith of Wiltshire. So now, how could he come from Wiltshire and Judith come from Wiltshire, who was the son of King Edward the Peaceful, who was an Afro-Asiatic Berber? It just shows you Miffin's so-called family crest is not official. Because his last name, mother's name was Bagnall. Then we just read that? Elizabeth Bagnall. So he shows you a distortion. Let's go a little further. Well, actually, we can move on because we just established that Thomas Mifflin does not have a birthright here to England.
Mm-hmm.
He only stole the name and the identity of those who have a birthright here in England.
Correct.
It was misnominated by way of the charter given by way of Charles II in 1640 under George Carteret, where it's granted land out to so-called under what they call the concession agreement under the term called quiet rent, which means that I'll leave you some territory by way of possession and the interest to that possession, but you have to file a certificate of registration with the so-called trustee, i.e. the Superior Court, and you have to pay a tax, i.e. fee. So therefore, how could you have the rights when you got to pay tax to it? The only person that owns it is the one who lent it to you. That's not possession. That's not allodial. That's fee and simple. That's not fee and tell. The only one who has the right is the one who issued the so-called charter, which was England. And the only way you have the right to the charter, i.e. the land, by way of the land patent, is by the one who issued the land patent. And that was Edward the Confessor, who was the grandson of King Edward the Peaceful. So let's move on, brothers and sisters. Let's go in and look up rights of an Englishman. See that, brother?
Mm-hmm.
Rights of an Englishman. Hope you brothers and sisters taking notes, please.
Take a look at
repeating myself.
family. Y'all need to take notes to this right here. Check it out.
The rights of an Englishman are the perceived traditional rights of citizens of England. In the 18th century, some of the colonists who objected to British rule in the British colonies in North America argued that their traditional rights as Englishmen were being violated. They were being violated. Now it said British, not England. Who was the establishment of the British Empire? King George I in 1714, when it was given to him by who? Queen Anne. 1706. Because the Kingdom of England ruled from 927 under Asserton. Asserton was the son of Edward the Elder, the son of Edmund I, who was the wife of Ilswith, which we can see that were Afro-Asiatic, who was whitewashed. So we see right here, it says that the so-called people who came to a so-called misnominated America was going against the so-called British rules and wanted to establish their own rights here in what they call or identify what they call America or North America. It says they objected to British rule in the British colonies in North America, and they argued that their traditional rights as Englishmen were being violated. The only person I know being violated here in North America was the so-called people identified as slaves.
Do y'all hear that,
Indians.
family? That's right.
That's the only one rights I see violated. It says the colonists wanted and expected the right that they or their forebears had previously enjoyed in England. That means that the people who came here had rights over in England. So we just proved the people in England were Afro-Asiatic people. And their rights was protected under the Statutes of Westminster of 1285, which clearly states that no land can be transferred only but to the heirs. And it was under the authority of what they call laws of Edward's Confessorate, or laws of Edward the Confessor, which protected the Jews who were under the jurisdiction of the king. What king was that? King Edgar the Peaceful. Okay. It says the colonists wanted and expected the rights that they or their forefathers had previously enjoyed in England. A local representative government with regards to judicial matters, some colonists were being sent back to England for trials, and particularly with regards to taxation. Belief of these rights subsequently became a widely accepted justification for the American Revolution. See how this is all linked up? Matter of fact, the first time you hear of a grand jury comes up under the jurisdiction of Henry II, who was the son of Geoffery V, or Jefferson V, the countermand Jew. That's the first time the term grand jury ever came about in England. So why we have grand juries here in North America? Because it came from England. It says here, let's go here, let me keep one that. Paragraph 2. The American colonists had since the 17th century been fertile ground for liberalism within the center of European political discourse. However, as the ratification of the Declaration of Independence approached, the issue among the colonists of which particular rights were significant became divisive. George Mason, one of the founding fathers of the United States, stated that we claim nothing but the liberty and privileges of Englishmen in the same degree as if we had continued among our brethren in Great Britain. We just proved that the kings and queens of Great Britain were Afro-Asiatic.
Correct.
But they were invaded by people from other lands, Scandinavian Vikings, and other, what they call nomadic Berbers.
So you can see right here where it's stating they're trying to claim our status, our English nobility status.
It's wrong. Let's go here. Historical significance. Paragraph 1. In the tradition of the Whig history, Judge William Blackstone, that's
Correct.
the case law
Correct.
dealing with.
Exactly. Coming from dealing with the land.
Dealing with the land, calls them the absolute right of every Englishman, and explained how they had been established slowly over centuries of English history. In his book of Fundamental Laws of England, which was the first part of his influential commentary of Laws of England, there were certain basic rights that all subjects of English monarchs were understood to be entitled to. So what is the English monarch? A king. So all the Englishmen who subject to the king are subject to the right as descendants from the king, as we established under the laws of the king, under the laws of Edward's Confessors, as well as the Statute of Westminster. You have the right and protection by the king. This is why they removed kings. But now they got presidents. He's so-called misnowned the king unlawfully. Well, guess what? The king is back. I am your king. I am your Lord. I am the one who descended down and has returned back from the King Edgar the Peaceful. I come to restore who you are, divine and victory for where you come down from. Everyone must return back to their own land, speaking their own language, having their own customs. This is going to be done by the one who was sent, and that's me. It says here, they were certain basic rights that all subjects of English monarchs were understood to be entitled to, such as those expressed in the Magna Carta since 1215. Who signed the Magna Carta? John I. Who was the son of? Henry II. Who was he the son of? Geoffery V. From what? The House of Plantagenet, which had under the jurisdiction what they call Jersey, or Berwick of Jersey, where New Jersey get their name from. Called Berwick of Jersey, which the charter was issued to George Carteret and 1640 from Charles II, which he named New Jersey, which is now part of what we call the United States.
Corporation.
A corporation, brothers and sisters. Let's go down a little bit more to support it. Legacy in the United States, paragraph 1. Owing legacy of the United States laws. It says, owing to its inclusion in the standard legal treaties of the 19th century, Calvin case was well known in the early judicial history of the United States. This is case law, brothers and sisters. Consideration of the cases by the United States Supreme Court and by state courts transformed it into a rule regarding American citizens and solidified the concept of jus soli. You hear that, brothers and sisters? Jus soli means the right to the land by way of descent. The right by which nationality or citizenship can be recognized to any individual born in the territory of the related states as the primary determination factor controlling the acquisition of citizenship by birth. By birth. You can be born anywhere. That don't mean you got the rights to the laws as a citizen. You claim to be a part of a nation, but when you're in another nation or territory, those laws do not apply.
True story.
You got to go home for that. And if you definitely identifying yourself to a country's laws that you ain't never been to or not in their system, you are impersonating that. And they can what they call exiled, or what they call what's that term?
Expelled too.
Expelled is another legal term for it. Transfer over, that's not the term I'm looking for, back to that country. And if you ain't in their database, you in trouble. They can put you in jail.
Exported.
Exported. Exported, exile, whatever term you want to use. You can be exiled. Because, once again, treaties do not establish your rights to the land or rights to protection of the laws of that land. Only its citizens, i.e. national citizens, who have the right to jus soli or jus sanguinis. So let's understand what jus soli is. Jus solis. Jus soli, Latin pronunciation meaning right of the soil. Did you hear that, brothers and sisters? Right of the soil, commonly referring to a birthright citizenship in the United States. You hear that? You speak English. You read English literature. That's the predominant language here in North America. It's English. All the history relative to this area is recorded in English, which goes back to England. All the modern understanding which refers to what we call Africa is written in English. If you got to go to or make reference to those who identify that land which you call your own, which is written in English. Go back to the customs, the laws, and the council support the identity who you say you are according to that land. You won't need English to identify yourself with. You don't need English laws to identify yourself. But you do. You do. Let's go a little further. And it says, commonly referred to as the birthright citizenship in the United States. So we know the United States is a corporation. So United States birthright doesn't come in the corporation of the United States. It comes from your county, i.e. your shire.
Hear that? The county, family. The county.
There you go.
Not the United States, the county.
It said it is the right of anyone born in the territory of a state to nationality or citizenship. Jus soli was the part of the English common law. In contrast, which means adverse to jus sanguinis, which derives from the Roman law. Did you hear that? It derives from the Roman law that influenced the civil law system of continental Europe, where it exists universally. is often not quite unconditional. For instance, some countries deny citizenship to children of foreign diplomats. As an unconditional or near unconditional basis for citizenship, jus soli is the predominant rule in America, but it's rare elsewhere. Since the 27th Amendment of the Constitution in Ireland was enacted in 2004, no European country grants citizenship based on unconditional or near unconditional jus soli. It says almost all states in, they don't say America, they don't say England, watch what it says. Almost all states in Europe, Asia, Africa, Oceania grant citizenship at birth based upon the principles of jus sanguinis, right of blood, in which citizenship is inherited through parents, not by birthplace, or a restricted version of jus soli, in which citizenship by birthplace is automatically only for the children of certain immigrants. Countries that have accepted to the 1961 Convention of the Reduction of Statelessness will grant no nationality to otherwise stateless persons who were born on their territories or on ships or aircraft flagged by that country. Better read this, Morris. Better read this, anybody else. You better read this, Africans. You better read this, Europeans. You better read this, anybody who claims to have an identity with status and standing. You need to read this and identify yourself with this requirement standing in law pertaining to who you say you are and who you say you and where you say you come from. Because to do that in the eyes of law and not being able to prove that status and standing can be detrimental to you. Let's see where we at. Let's go to okay, we read that. Let's go to jus sanguinis. You see that, Chancellor?
Yes, sir.
Jus sanguinis, or right of blood, is the principle of nationality law by which citizenship is not determined by a place of birth, but by having one or both parents who are citizens of the state. Remember, the state is incorporated. The county is the only territory that's governed by the people before it incorporates into a state, because it first had to go into a tribe, then a village, then it became over where they had established what they call a county. The county's root word is country. The state became incorporated, which means that the state is an acting agent, i.e. trustees, who be act on behalf of the county, i.e. which is made of the people, which is broken up into what they call counties. New Jersey is broken up into 21 counties, which is held by way of board of freeholders who have way of what they call possession to that so-called right as trustees under what they call fee and simple, which means that they don't have a right to the land, they just have the right to possession of it by way of a certificate of grantee.
Estate transfers.
State transfer.
They're stealing your birthright by way of your estate.
And they lending it out to so-called borrowers and getting paid by way of taxation, but you ain't getting the benefit to that taxation. You're supposed to get the benefits from that as the beneficiary, as the lender to the so-called government, i.e. trustee. It says, children at birth may automatically be citizens if their parents have state citizenship or national identity of ethnic, cultural, or other origins. Citizenship can also apply to children whose parents belong to a diaspora and were not themselves citizens of the state conferring citizenship, with jus soli. So that means that you can be born anywhere, but if you're not a citizen recognized by way of descent to the land itself, then you have no rights to the rights of that as a citizen, as a member by being born there. Because it'd be wrong, that's like I'm going to Africa and I want the same protection as a citizen from Africa. That ain't right. I wasn't born there. That's like somebody coming in your house and don't live in the house and just be having the rights that you got. It don't work that way. You don't know him from a can of paint. It's colored until he can establish a relationship that connects to him, that creates an obligation to him. Now, if you consider out of your own heart to be beneficial to him, then that's the case. But look where it got us. Okay. All right, so now we established that the right of just soil and just sanguineous pertaining to the right to a allodial title to any territory, especially here in North America, i.e. New Jersey. Because I'm not in England now. I'm not in Africa. I'm not in Europe. I'm in what we call Jersey, which is actually a part of England, because we've been all around the world as birds. We've been in what we call Africa today. We've been in what we call England, and we are in what we call America today. But we are using misnomers or names to identify ourselves with our present day identification, with this is what we're not. But as English noblemen, we're able to satisfy any argument. We can speak their language, we can speak our language, we can speak the code, we can speak historical facts, whatever they want to go with it, we can go that way. Because it's making a full, complete circle. Okay, let's go to Jersey. Because what I'm taking you back now is to the other videos I did pertaining to jurisdiction pertaining to Jersey and how it was established by the House of Plantagen by way of charges given what they call the Great Solar Rim, which was thrown in the river by King James, who wrote the Bible. King James wrote the Bible for the benefit of the so-called Jews who were under the jurisdiction of the so-called king. So now this is why New Jersey is called the Garden of State. In the biblical term, it's called the Garden of Eden. Let's check this out. Jersey. Jersey, officially Berwick of Jersey, or Baileys of Jersey, is a crown dependency located near the coast of Normandy, French. Guess what they call the coast of New Jersey? Normandy. Isn't that strange? New Jersey are the names of the state of New Jersey and all these counties are names which derive from England. Sussex County, Middlesex County, Mercer County, Union County. Look them up more. These names are names that were derived from England. But the names that were derived from England but were given new identities by way of the so-called corporate identities who took on what they call concession agreements, which was way of what they call statutes or mortmains. The statutes of mortmain means dead hands, which were given by way of corporations by way of what they call head right. Head right was established by King James when they established what they call the Virginia Company, the Plymouth Company. This comes under the jurisdiction of what they call Forefathers Day, by the way, which was December 21st. Look it up. Forefathers Day, it denotes to what they call the Old Colony Club, or the Gentlemen's Club, or what they call the Mayflower Society, which is where you get the Masonic clubs come from. This is where they get the Plymouth Rock. Malcolm X said, we didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us. That's what he's talking about. The so-called people who came here and took on the identity of the people who are already here. Okay, it says, located off the coast of Normandy, France. Jersey was part of the Duchy of Normandy, whose dukes went on to become kings of England from 1066. This is when William the Conqueror died and issued the charters. After Normandy was lost by the kings of England in the 13th century and the ducal titles surrendered to France, Jersey and the other Channel Islands remained attached to the English crown. Did you hear that, brothers and sisters? It remained attached to the England crown. Paragraph 2.
Do you hear that? That family, it remained attached to the English crown. So that's saying Jersey is the land is still owned and governed under England.
Mm-hmm. It says the Berwick consists of the islands of Jersey, the largest of the Channel Islands, along with surrounding uninhabited islands and rocks collectively named Les Dorulus, Les Ecuishaus, Les Mencour, Les Perez de Luc, and other reefs. Although the Berwick of Jersey and Guernsey are often referred to collectively as the Channel Islands. The Channel Islands are not a constitutional or political unit. Jersey has a separate relationship to the crown from the other crown dependencies of Guernsey and the Isles of Man, although are held by the monarchs of the United Kingdom. Why? Because they're subject to what they call the Magna Carta 1215. Let's go down to history. Paragraph 4. It says here, Jersey was part of Neustria, with the same Gallo-Frankish population as the continental mainland. Jersey, the whole Channel Islands, and the Cotentin Peninsula came formerly under the control of the Duke of Brittany during the Viking invasions, because the King of Franks were unable to defend them. However, they remained in the Archbishopric of Rouen. Jerseys were invaded by Vikings in the 9th century. In 933, it was annexed to the future Dutch of Normandy together with other Channel Islands. Let's go down a little bit, a little different. Let's go down to point 32, right here. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, it says the Duke of Normandy owned considerable estates in the islands, and the Norman families living on their estate. Did you hear that? It says the Norman families living on their estate established many of the historical Norman French Jersey family names. Period. It says King John, who was King John? King John I, who signed the Magna Carta in 1215, was the son of Henry II, the son of Geoffery V, of the Count of Anjou, the House of Plantagenet, which is where my family name come from. It says King John lost all his territory in mainland Normandy in 1204 to King Philip of Augustus, but retained possession of Jersey and the other Channel Islands. So when you get to King Philip of Augustus, that takes you to the wars of the Capitan Plantagenet Wars. This was done by Leo, Pope Augustus, Philip Augustus, the son of Leo VIII, and Henry II. Let's get into what we call the creation of what we call the flag of England. It says, in the Treaty of Paris of 1259, the English king formally surrendered his claim to the Dutch of Normandy and ducal title. And since then, the island have been internally self-governing territory of the English crown and latterly the British crown. Okay, let's go here. Let's go right here. It says, in the late 16th century, islanders traveled across North Atlantic to participate in the Newfoundland fisheries. In recognition for help given to him during his exile in Jersey in 1640, King Charles of England gave Vice Admiral Sir George Carteret bailiff and governor a large grant of land in American colonies and between the Hudson and Delaware rivers, which he promptly named New Jersey and is now a state in the United States. Moors, Berbers, and every other nationality or nation here in America who claim to be citizens of any state, you must know this history first. In order to have the rights protected by the Constitution, in order for that to protect you, you must be an English noble national citizen of English, Anglo-Corsican, Berber descent. Of descent, heirs, birthright, to the land, not because of birth, to the land. Okay, let's take it on home. So we understand that we were talking about Jersey, the jurisdiction where Jersey comes from, and we understand that it was broken down into counties, what we call shires. So now we're going to go in depth on what we call shires, because we know that New Jersey was established in what they call a charter. The charter was called the Great Silver Rim, which King James drew in the river. He drew the so-called Great Silver Rim in the Thames River, which was actually created by what they call, or created by who? Edward the Confessor. Edward the Confessor was the grandson of the King Edward the Peaceful. So let's see who King Edward the Confessor is. Okay. Edward the Confessor. From 1003 the 5th to January 1066.